third parties fail in American elections, we can talk about why for very long. There's one essential reason if you ask me. Might say some parties were a third party by the time they won a presidential election for the first time. I disagree with that. In general, the US are dominated by those two parties, but there are some exceptions. American presidential elections, however, if you ask me, were never won by a third party. And the reason is actually quite simple: the election system. Let's compare the United States election system with other countries where third parties actually exist somehow. And we will start with my own country, with Germany. I do not mean to say Germany does it better. I do not mean to say the US does it better. I just say the systems are the way they are, and the American system somehow is bad for third parties. Whether this is a good or a bad thing, decide for yourself. The US kind of has two parliaments, House of Representatives and Senate. Germany only has one, the Bundestag. And the Bundestag is voted by the people. In Germany you can give your vote not to a person but to a party, and then the party gets as many points of places in the parliament as they had votes. If you have 30% of the votes, you get 30% of the seats. If you have 20% of the votes, you get 20%. Any party with at least 5% of the votes gets seats in the parliament. Then the chancellor is voted by the parliament, and the laws are made by the parliament as well. But to make a law and vote the chancellor, you need the absolute majority, at least 50% of the votes from the parliament. In case any party has over 50% of the seats, they can decide most things themselves, but this actually never happens. Once in history, but back in the 50s. Therefore, at least two parties need to make a bond and compromises. Therefore, it does make more sense to vote for other parties, because even if the party you prefer does not win, there's the chance that the winning party needs to make a bond with your party. And even if there's no bond with your party, the party you prefer, they at least have a certain influence and get more attention, get a certain voice, because achieving those 5% is much easier than winning the whole election. But the United States is not the only country where the president is voted directly. And in other countries also third parties exist somehow. For example, in France. But the French election system is different as well. In the US you need an absolute majority in the electoral college, but not in the states. If you have in the United States most votes in a state, you get all of the state's points. In France this is completely different. There is no separation between the states, and you also need an absolute majority, more than 50% of the votes to win. What happens if no candidate has more than 50%? The two strongest candidates from the election, the two candidates with most votes, meet in an extra election. Therefore you can go in the first election with many candidates, always for the candidate you want most, because any vote who's not for the candidate you like least, for whoever it is, avoids that the candidate you like least gets more than 50% of the votes. My impression is that many people in America would like to somehow to vote for a third party, but do not do this because they are afraid to waste their vote, because they think, okay, the third parties don't have a chance anyway. I don't like the Republicans nor the Democrats, but I like this party a little more. Therefore, I will go for them to avoid the worst thing. In France, you can use the first election to vote for the candidate you want most, and then in the extra election between the two strongest candidates, you can still decide for the candidate you still consider to be the better option. And I think that's the reason why third parties are possible. For example, in France, Emmanuel Macron in 2017 became president of France, and I think he founded his party, as far as I heard, by the end of 2016. Which shows that this is possible. So if you are interested in a more detailed video about this I once made, check out this here, and thank you for watching.